All right, freshman All-American Dylan Stewart reveals early Wednesday that several schools around the country were tampering and offering him millions of dollars if he would leave South Carolina. It's the second player with him and Sellers that have both reported the same thing happening in the portal. We talk about that and ask the question, if they've gone after these two, who's next on South Carolina's roster as the next target of college NIL? Locked On Gamecocks starts right now.
You are Locked On Gamecocks, your daily podcast on the South Carolina Gamecocks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, guys? Welcome into Locked On Gamecocks. I'm your host, Chris Marler. I hope everyone's having a fantastic Wednesday, Thursday, or whenever you're listening to this episode of the show. Appreciate you guys making Locked On Gamecocks your first listen each and every day. Shout out to our everydayers. Remember, we're a free and available podcast wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, today's episode brought to you by our good friends at, drumroll please, Monarch Money. You guys have heard me talk about Monarch Money before. You're going to hear me talk about them again because nothing is better than taking control of your finances and doing so with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. All right, let's get into today's show. Here's what we are going to be discussing. Dylan Stewart, in an interview with On3, talks about how multiple teams from around the country maybe tampered, at least made millions of dollars in offers to try and sway him from leaving South Carolina and end up transferring to their school. It is the second star player at South Carolina that has reported something similar like this in the same week. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about what he said, talk about what to expect from him this year, and some other interesting quotes that he had about this year's team. And then after that, we'll talk about, now that this is becoming a bit of a trend, who are the next players that are going to be probably seen as targets from outside teams as elite breakthrough players on this South Carolina team this year. After that, we will also talk a little bit about some of the latest quarterback room rankings and preseason rankings for position units around the country and where South Carolina ranks this year. And let's not forget how far they've come from where they ranked a season ago. So here is today's show. Let's get into it. Dylan Stewart, freshman All-American, just an absolute star and came in right away, former five-star, and was a problem in the SEC. Finished last year, I believe, with 6.5 sacks, 10.5 tackles for loss, forced 3 fumbles. He was incredible all season long and was a problem all over the field and a perfect bookend to Kyle Kennard. It shouldn't be a surprise to anyone, especially after what we heard about Lenore Sellers, and especially what we've seen in the past several years in college football and the transfer portal era, especially with NIL, and especially this year with NIL, with this surplus of money thanks to the House settlement. But what was said in an interview with On3, Dylan Stewart said multiple teams were coming after him in both windows, trying to sway him to leave South Carolina, and he didn't get into the specifics of what he was offered. But Pete Nako said it would have made him one of the richest players or one of the highest paid players in the entire sport right away. And you look about like the numbers of what that would include. If you're a top 5, top 10 player in terms of NIL value, the Bryce Underwood kid getting $12 million for his deal. Obviously, the quarterbacks in the ACC at Duke and Miami getting over $4.5 million. Him getting upwards of, I would say probably 2.5 to 3 is probably where they would have settled with that. It wouldn't have been quarterback money per se. But the cool part about this story, if there is one, because it's never fun watching other teams come in and try to tamper with your favorite and best players, but he would have been paid. He would have been the highest paid player at his position and the highest paid player, one of the highest paid players in the country overall, regardless, as a rising sophomore. The cool thing about that, where they tried to figure out what to pay him, South Carolina was way ahead of the curve. Again, you guys have heard me talk about it last year when we had Darren Usher on. And it's another, point that should be brought up again, because not only did South Carolina get ahead of the curve in terms of making sure that they had started working and negotiating on his contract as early as October of last season. He signed before Sellers in November and worked out a deal for $1.5 million. The $1.5 million, that set the entire market for this position in the entire NIL college football landscape. South Carolina did that. So listen, I understand that this program can sometimes be the butt of the joke, and that people don't like Shane Beamer, and people are going to sit here and say that it's a pipe dream to think they could make the playoff, and Lenore Sellers isn't that good, and all these very, very surface level and incorrect assessments, accusations, opinions on this program. But this is twice now that we have seen Shane Beamer and this program and everyone on this staff and administration work ahead of everyone else around him. And keep in mind, he was doing that. He wasn't doing it in a 5-7 year. He wasn't doing it when he was 7-5 and mailing it in because he was focused on the recruiting class like Hugh Freeze did a couple of years ago. No, he was doing it when he was winning 6 straight games and trying to get a bid into the college football playoff as one of the hottest teams in the country. And oh, by the way, beating Clemson again. So the fact that they have been able to have this well-rounded of a program, I think it's completely overlooked. And I don't know when that's going to change. But it is really, really impressive that not only were they out ahead of the curve on this, but they also were, again, just like Lenore Sellers, able to retain that talent because of the culture that they already have in place. There were some other quotes from Dylan Stewart that I thought were pretty interesting as well. One of my favorite lines, they brought up the incident where he did the machine gun celebration against Ole Miss and how much he got criticized for that, which maybe a little bit deservingly so. But also, when they asked him why he decided to do it, he said because he was tired of getting held all game and it got blown out of proportion. He also mentioned that he is now up to 6'5", 256 pounds. He's put on 20 pounds of muscle since he's gotten on campus a year ago. 256, I don't know what he's going to play at, but that is a perfect projection to be right at that 6'5", 270 range where most elite defensive end and pass rushers are coming out of college. The other stuff he talked about when he was brought up why he never left, he said he never even crossed his mind. Never even crossed his mind because he was happy with where he was at, happy with the deal he had in place, and he has a lot of goals for what he wants to do with this specific team and making his mark on this program. I love to hear that. I love the fact that he was not shy when he said his goals are to be one of the greats and also play not just in the college football playoff, but get a chance at winning a ring, which I love. He said, before I leave, I want to make sure that I make it to the playoff, but I actually want to get a ring. And you talk about going into his sophomore season, the goals he has set for himself. He wants to get better in every single statistical category and also every which way he can as a player. He said the biggest goal that he has for this year is simply be better than last year, but also he wants to break the SEC sack record set by Will Anderson a couple years back with 17 and a half. Also, side note, that is not the SEC record. It was set by Derek Thomas several years ago. But I love the attitude. I love the fact that he's put on some size because he was a little bit lanky last year. I doubt that it's going to affect his speed off the edge because he is a one-of-one type athlete there. I also love the fact that he's the only returning defensive lineman to sit inside the top 4 in both Havoc plays and PFF pass rush grade entering 2025. Listen, a true sophomore coming back at one of the most important positions in the sport. I know Kennard's not there. They will figure out who to put on the other side of him. But this kid is going to be a problem for the next 2 years, and you get to watch him in the garnet and black, and that is special. The other thing, too, Caleb Downs, the moment that kid stepped on campus at Alabama with Saban, they said he was one of the best players on the team, if not the best player on the team, like pound for pound. You're already hearing about how he could be a potential top 3 to 5, maybe number 1 overall pick in this year's NFL draft, even at safety. The discussion with a lot of coaches and people around the country, not fans, analysts, or media, but coaches, is that it's him and Stewart as the clear-cut 1 and 2 best defensive players in the country. So a lot of excitement, lots to look forward to with this kid. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about the trend that we've had to talk about twice this week now with star players from South Carolina being offered millions from other schools. It's going to keep happening. We all know that. So who are some other players that might have breakout years this year in Carolina and become the targets of tampering and millions of NIL offers at the end of the season as well? We'll talk about all that and more. Locked On Gamecocks continues right after this. All right, guys, we are back, and I'm going to be honest with you here. I tried to get this show done hours ago. We recorded the first segment and then took a little break to watch the Arkansas LSU baseball game. That game has just ended, and my goodness, what an incredible ending. But we're back for the rest of the episode. Before we get into it and talk about who are some other potential prospects from South Carolina that will absolutely be developed by this staff, have breakout years, and then potentially fall into the same trend where other suitors coming and offer millions of dollars in NIL, just like they did with Sellers and Dylan Stewart. Before we get into those, I do want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor of today's episode, Monarch Money. Listen, do you ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Ask Duke or Miami or whoever offered Lenore Sellers $8 million. I'm sure they feel that exact way. But between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, all the above, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center where you can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Listen, take it from me. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Okay, let's get back into the episode. And so I hope I explained that decently well. Feels like I didn't. But my question is this. I think we all knew Dylan Stewart was going to be good. I don't think we knew he was going to be that good as a true freshman. I think we all had hopes and expectations that Lenore Sellers, as a former four-star recruit, was going to be good, but I don't think we knew how good he was going to be in year one as a starter. That being said, in this day and age, poaching, tampering, and other teams coming in trying to swoop in and not steal, but woo kids away from the school they're at and the school that recruited them with large, fat NIL checks and sponsorship deals. Who's next? Because it's going to keep happening. And it's a good thing that it is happening at South Carolina, because all that means is you're finding people that were clearly overlooked by these teams out of high school, and then you're bringing them with your staff that feels like it's constantly overlooked as well, developing them. And now it's frustrating that so many people are after these guys, but you're now 2 for 2 with just your superstars in terms of wanting to stay home, not taking not just a bit of a pay raise, but a life-changing, I don't want to say generational wealth, but $8 million for a 19 and 20-year-old kid is insane. Turning that down because of what you have put in place and the culture you've built in South Carolina. So who are some potential other players that could fall into the same category? I'll start here with Josiah Thompson. Josiah Thompson, former top 50 recruits, very high 4-star, left tackle, starter since day one, going into his second year as a starter. More than anything, what drives the market and the price for these prospects? And it's the same at both levels, college and pro now. The position and the importance of the position that some players play. And they play at an elite level. But the position they play, Josiah Thompson hasn't played like a guy that deserves a massive NIL contract because he's only been in year one as a starter and got thrown to the fire as a left tackle in the SEC. But with another year in the offseason, weight room, all that kind of stuff, and a full year of experience playing in all 13 games, you would have to expect the leap he's going to make from year one to year two to be significant. He's a very talented kid. That hasn't gone away. So he also plays a position, left tackle, that is one of the most important positions in the entire sport, and people are going to come calling. I think that's the most obvious one out of anyone. I don't think also, let me be very clear. I don't think anyone is going to necessarily leave, and I'm not pining for that to happen or saying that there's rumors that they are being tampered with. I'm just saying these feel like the most likely next man up to fit this criteria. The second one, this is a little bit of a sleeper here. Michael Smith, the tight end. He's going to be a starter this year. He played in, I think it was 11 games last year. Was really, really good in the red zone as a true freshman. Size, complete physical mismatch, freak of nature as an athlete. The tight end has always been pretty important, not only in Dowell Loggins' offense, but also in Mike Shula's. I don't think they're going to go away from that. I think that as good as they were last year at this position, right? As good as they were a year ago, Michael Smith is a different type of athlete and creates different types of problems for defenses, especially in the red zone. The other part of it too is if we're going to play this game of predicting the future and bold takes, whatever, the other part is they are really deep at tight end this year, really deep. Got 2 kids out of the portal, one a former SEC guy from Kentucky. You also have the freshman, I'm drawing a blank on his last name right now, but Mike, whatever, I think it's Mike Hart, the kid from Hammond, 3-star that you flipped from LSU in the final weeks of last December. That kid's gonna be a true freshman. It's a crowded room. Make no mistake about it. He is the best player in that room, but it's still a very deep and talented room. So if he's not getting as many touches, again, all these kids seem to have a really good circle around them that's telling them the right things and the mature things and the responsible things that they should be hearing that a lot of kids don't. But that does not mean that people who are out for themselves, out for other teams, or just, playing the game that it has become aren't going to keep calling, texting, and trying to bring them elsewhere. So if he's sharing a lot of receptions this year, which I don't expect him to do, or even if he has a big year and has 5 or 6 touchdowns, you can see what tight ends have gone for in the market here already in the NIL era. I'm going to give you 2 other ones that I feel like could be dark horses here. Donovan Darden, freshman. Like, there's a significant amount, I think it's over 63% of the people that enter the transfer portal during college do so within their first year of being on campus. Donovan Darden was the highest ranked recruit you had in the 2024 class, I believe. I'll have to double check on this, make sure it's right. It might be 2025. It's late. But that kid is a physical specimen, checks all the boxes of what you want, like physically from an SEC linebacker, right? The only concern here isn't whether or not he's going to be developed, because Clayton White has done wonders and shown over and over and over again. Look at all 3 of last year's starters, how good of a job they did. And they were all like almost a diamond in the rough out of the portal. If he's not getting significant playing time in this year, where you have all like 3 brand new starters, you're replacing the entire linebacking core, I could see people ringing his phone. That's all I'll say. I don't, again, doesn't necessarily mean he's going to go anywhere, but people will be calling his phone. Like, most of this, or at least half of this, is not as much as some of the narrative that's been painted with some of these kids. Like, they just want things handed to them. They're entitled. They don't want to work hard. They want like a guaranteed starting spot. There's cases of that for sure. But a lot of times you're an 18, 19-year-old kid. You're impressionable. You are, maybe you are frustrated you're not getting enough snaps. But when someone's in your ear that is a older, respectable, like figure that has been around the game, is promising you money, is promising you tons of things that you may not be getting, or they're making you believe you're not getting, that's where most of this comes from. I firmly believe the bigger problem is not the kids, but the people surrounding the kids in this entire thing. That's a story for another day. If he does not get a ton of playing time, I could see it being frustrated, because here's the thing. That guy is an athlete that is good enough to be on the field somewhere. And you are now also in a position at South Carolina, which you haven't had the luxury of being in for, it seems like at least at most of your position units in quite some time, where you've got some depth and you've got some talent at every single level of that depth. So you're going to lose players that were high 4-star recruits and blue chip players out of high school, because they are behind other blue chip players that you also recruited. And that's a testament more so than anything to, how good of a job they've done building this program. Last but not least, this one feels like the most obvious one, and I hate to say it, and I'm not trying to be Debbie Downer here, and I don't even want to look at like calling one of them out, because I'm so excited about every single one of them that is going to be involved in the offense this year. But one of those receivers feels like they're destined to enter the portal at some point. There's only so many positions. There's only so many catches. There's only so many targets. You brought in 5 really, really good receivers in this year's class. You're recruiting a bunch for next year. You also have a lot of good players at that position that are most likely going to be back again next year. So there's only so many passes and receptions to go around in that room. If I had to guess, and this is, I'm not I don't think there's anything that's been said like where anyone's unhappy or there's like any kind of like character stuff at all. But 5 elite receivers coming in and arguably what was the best receiving class of like in the 2025 recruiting cycle of anyone else in the country, it's going to be hard for all of them to find a spot on the field, especially early. So those are my predictions. I hope none of them happen. I hope they all stay. I hope we see exactly what we've seen from Lenore Sellers and exactly what we've seen from Dylan Stewart, because that says a lot about their character and a lot about this program. When we come back, we're going to continue to say a lot about the program, and we're going to do a little bit of comparing and contrasting where this quarterback room is this year in comparison to last year, and it may surprise you. All right, we'll close out today's show pretty quick here. I was thinking about this the other day because I remember when I started doing the show almost a year ago exactly in 2024. And I was, going through the magazines, and it's magazine season in the summer, and you're getting ready for the games, like, still 2.5 months away, and learning the roster. And it was the first time I really realized, like, oh man, they are like in the same way that Georgia gets the benefit of the doubt about everything, or Alabama gets the benefit of the doubt about everything when it comes to like preseason rankings or play ranks, whatever. South Carolina is the opposite of that. So we all know how good Lenore Sellers is. I do think it's not talked enough about with how good the quarterback room is, like with the talent behind him. And Aaron Nolan, Cutter Woods, like those aren't guys that have hardly any experience at the collegiate level yet. But you've seen this play out before. You saw what happened to Georgia last year in the college football playoff. You saw it a couple years ago. I think like Bama had it happen to them against Georgia in the 2017 national championship, where 2 had to come in for Jalen. There's been several examples over the years where in 2014, Ohio State, where you go into the actual postseason and their first game, they're playing with a 3rd-string quarterback because Braxton Miller and I don't think it was Haskins, it was somebody else, both got injured. So you bring in a 3rd-stringer. It's very important to have an elite quarterback. It's almost as important to have quality depth behind him. Because especially with how Lenore Sellers plays, he's going to get banged up. We saw it happen last year. Hopefully it doesn't happen at all this year. But the way he runs, the way he plays, full steam ahead, there's going to be hits, collisions, and just nagging injuries over the course of a season. So having a well-rounded entire quarterback room, huge. And I was thinking about this the other day because of the fact that ESPN came out with their quarterback rankings. And On3 came out with theirs as well, of quarterback rooms, not just quarterbacks in general. I'm scrolling through it. I think it was like LSU, Texas, Clemson. Boom. South Carolina was 4th in the country. 4th. My immediate thought was, where was this? What was the prediction last year? Because even Brad Crawford, who I love to death and I know is a big fan of South Carolina and has been for his whole life, going into last season, I looked it up, and this isn't a knock on Brad. We all get predictions wrong. I'm sure he would laugh about this one too. I've been terribly wrong. But Lenore Sellers was 15th on his preseason quarterback rankings. I think I might have had him down there around 13, 14 at the start of the year because of how he looked in a couple of those games. You think about how far you've come from that, where like it's not even what we've seen from his ability yet or what he's done on the field. It's just, I don't love that. I don't love it. Dow Loggins is OC. He didn't have a lot of talent around him. Like probably the 15th best quarterback out of 16 players in this league. You look at any of the magazines, Athlon and Lindy's, they had him 14th and 15th for the QB units in each of those. And then I forgot which one it was, but there was another one that had him 16th and dead last in the conference. Now, a year later and going into this season, it's nice to finally get some respect, not just for Lenore's, but for what they've built around him and behind him and on this roster. So that is all for today's episode. We'll dive into more of the recruiting stuff and the Elite 11, challenges going on out in California. Landon Duckworth's there. Some recruiting tidbits and nuggets coming your way tomorrow. But until then, we will be back with more Gamecock stuff tomorrow. And make sure you tune in to Locked On Gamecocks every day. Go Cox.